and welcome to this week's Mutant Blitz podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hennig, as we come at you every week with topics about sports, comic book movies, and TV shows. This week, we're going to get into how the NFL draft is shaping up, my reactions to the Deadpool trailer, along with the new Krypton show on Sci-Fi. Also, at the end of the podcast, instead of having a one-on-one guest this week, we're going to have an elongated conversation about the Avengers Infinity War trailer, what it means, and expectations moving forward. So let's get started. So as I record this podcast on Thursday night, there are a few different news items that have happened this week that are all changing the NFL draft as we know it. First of all, it was over the past weekend the Jets traded up the third overall with the Colts. The Jets gave up a very, very nice package of a lot of picks that are going to help the Colts rebuild the lack of talent on their roster that Chris Ballard has been so desperate to try to reload after the horrible tenure of Ryan Grigson. The Jets moving up the third overall tells us one specific thing. They're aiming for a quarterback. The Jets are going to be at, or have already been at, the following quarterbacks' pro days: Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield. So if they're going to all four of them, you have to believe that at least one or two of those guys is still going to be there when the third overall pick comes around. And this is a big deal for the Jets because you see what they're doing with bringing in Teddy Bridgewater. You see what they're doing with bringing in Josh McCown. What they're basically saying is that we're going to load up with as many quarterbacks as possible. One of them has to work. One of them has to hit. And as long as one of them works and one of them hits, then they're happy. I think that right now, no matter who the drafted quarterback is, I just don't foresee that young quarterback, whether it's Rosen or Allen or Mayfield or Darnold, I don't see them beating out McCown or Bridgewater in a competition because, one, McCown's already a well-known guy in the locker room. He's already a proven quarterback, and he's already going to have a leg up on the other two guys because of the fact that he already has a familiarity with the coaching staff and the team. I think Bridgewater is going to have an advantage over the younger quarterback as well because, one, he's played in the NFL for a little while, and two, I think Teddy is very highly motivated to go out there and show what he can do. I think he really wants to show that he can still play in the NFL and he can play at a high level. So both of the guys ahead of this young quarterback who's going to be drafted are going to be having a lot to prove, whereas the young quarterback, he doesn't have as much to prove. He can just sit back and let the world come to him. Now, the Giants made a trade this week as well. They traded Jason Pierre-Paul to the Buccaneers, and of course, they exchanged some draft picks as well. It's not the draft picks that matter. It's the moving of Jason Pierre-Paul, because now we're hearing reports that the Giants' big three that they're interested in are Bradley Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and Quentin Nelson. So you're looking at the top running back, the top pass rusher, and the top offensive lineman in this draft are all on the Giants' board. And that tells you a couple things. It tells you, one, the Giants are planning for a world where Eli Manning is the starting quarterback moving forward. They're not trying to look for the next young quarterback as much as they're trying to focus on what they're going to do with Eli and what they're going to do with the guys they already have. Getting rid of Jason Pierre-Paul opens up almost $20 million on their salary cap next offseason. So that means you're going to have more money to pay Odell Beckham Jr., more money available to play Landon Collins, and more money to have flexibility moving forward with the franchise. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you who I know the Giants are going to go pick at number 2, but I will give you an argument for all three of them. First of all, if you're really intent on building around Eli Manning and also building for the future, Saquon Barkley is a very logical pick. He's not just the best running back in this draft. He's arguably one of the best running back prospects of the last 18 years. If you compare Saquon Barkley to other running backs who have drafted high in the first round, he's faster than Ezekiel Elliott. He has better hands than Leonard Fournette. He's more powerful than Reggie Bush. He's more explosive than Trent Richardson. Also, he's more durable than Darren McFadden. And also, don't forget, he can do kick and punt returns as well. He is such a great all-around offensive weapon that I think that he just makes so much sense, not just for the Giants, but for any team to pick up. I would be surprised if Barkley drops beyond 4th in this draft. He could go number 1 to the Browns, but I'm going to explain why I think that's less likely in a couple minutes. I think for the Giants, he makes a lot of sense if your goal is to put the best talent possible around Eli to maximize his window for a couple of years. If you're trying to stabilize the offensive line, you got to go Quentin Nelson. I know you don't typically draft a guard that high in the draft, but Quentin Nelson is an exceptional athlete. He's an exceptional blocker. He's got a mean streak, and he has the potential to be better than any other guard in the league right now in a couple of years. He is a potential 10-year starter right off the bat, and I think that wouldn't just be good for Eli. That'd be good for the future of the franchise, because if you do end up drafting a quarterback later in the draft this year or in the first round next year, you at least have a guy who can ensure that said quarterback will be protected. You already signed Nate Solder. Why not keep upgrading the offensive line? Now, the third option for the Giants is Bradley Chubb. Moving JPP obviously opens up the opportunity for you to draft Bradley Chubb. Chubb is a relentless rusher, and when you have a guy with his kind of motor, he will burn himself out. If the Giants can get him in a somewhat of a timeshare where he's not on the field for more than maybe 63 to 66% of the plays this upcoming season, I think he could be extremely effective and possibly be the defensive rookie of the year. Chubb's strength is also his weakness. He doesn't stop. He just goes and fights and claws on every play. He gives max effort on every play. But because of that, you saw at times in college, he got tired. Not because he wasn't in shape, but because he's literally giving 110% on every play. The Giants would have to manage him a little bit. And I think because the Giants do have a little bit of depth on the defensive line, they could manage his snaps. And I think that would help him in the long run. So whoever the Giants go with, I think it will say a lot about how they look at the future of this team. Chubb would be a sign they're trying to revitalize the defense and keep the defense strong. I think drafting Barkley gives you a sign that they're trying to maximize Eli's window right now. They draft Nelson. That tells you they're trying to lock up the offensive line, not just for Eli, but for whoever the future quarterback's going to be. The other news item that happened this week that's going to affect the NFL draft is look at what happened at Sam Darnold's Pro Day versus Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon Barkley did all of his work at the NFL Draft Combine. He ran the 40. He did all the agility drills. He did everything he had to do to prove that he is the number one prospect in this draft. He didn't do anything at his pro day. And his reasoning that he told ESPN's Diana Rossini was the fact that no team sent any running back coaches, so he was advised to not run any drills and not perform because there was no one there to run him through said drills. A bit of a flimsy reason, but I understand where he's coming from. The fact that teams didn't send any coaches to work him out tells you something specifically. Most teams have an idea of where he's going to get picked. And I think that tells you also he's going to be a top 4 pick. But what happened at Sam Darnold's pro day makes me think Barkley won't be the number 1 overall pick. Up until this week, I had been thoroughly convinced for the last few weeks that Barkley was going to go number 1 overall and the Browns would take a quarterback at 4. But what happened at Sam Darnold's pro day was 2 specific things. 1, every major member of the Browns coaching and staff and front office were in attendance. And it was Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, sitting with Sam Darnold's parents and talking with them during Sam Darnold's workouts. That tells me specifically Jimmy Haslam, the owner's interest in this quarterback. Do not overlook that it was Jimmy Haslam who wanted the Browns to draft Johnny Manziel. It was Jimmy Haslam who wanted Manziel in Cleveland. It was Haslam who went out of his way to demand certain coaches be hired and fired in the last few years. He is a hands-on owner. He's very involved in the organization, for better or for worse. And I think that what you're seeing is with him there, that tells you the Browns' interest in Darnold is not just as one of the quarterbacks in this draft. It may be as their top guy on their board. However you rank the quarterbacks in this draft, from my perspective, Darnold is not my number one quarterback prospect, but he is the quarterback with the highest upside of all of these quarterbacks. I think if Darnold can get some good coaching, get some good mentoring, and he goes to the right situation, he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. He's got the arm strength, he's got the moxie, he's got the desire to learn and get better that you need to be a great quarterback. The thing that troubles me with Darnold that would caution me from drafting him if I'm the Browns is the turnover issues. I don't like the fumbles. I don't like the fact that he still hasn't learned how to read through progressions properly. It's really aggravating when you watch him at times how he just stares down receivers, and that's why he gets some of the interceptions he throws. And I think part of the reason why he stares down receivers isn't as much because I don't think that he doesn't know how to go through progressions. I just don't think he was being coached up to run the offense properly at all. And that's really disconcerting because then he's already developing bad habits. You're going to have to break those bad habits. You're going to have to put him in a film room. Any of the teams that are in the top 5 have quarterbacks already in-house, whether it's Tyrod Taylor with the Browns, Eli Manning with the Giants, Josh McCown and Teddy Bridgewater with the Jets, and Case Keenum with the Broncos. All 4 of those teams are top pick in the top 5. All have quarterbacks who can sit Sam Darnold and help try to break his bad habits. But is he going to regress to those bad habits of not holding the ball tight, not securing the ball when he's getting blitzed, staring down a receiver when the blitz is coming at him, not stepping up in the pocket, instead sliding from side to side, or vice versa? There's all these little things that he still has not learned how to do properly that a quarterback like a Josh Rosen, or even at times Lamar Jackson, knows how to do better than Sam Darnold does. To me, I think after the news that came out this week with the Jets trading up to 3rd, the Giants trading away Jason Pierre-Paul, and with the Browns being at Sam Darnold's pro day in bold fashion while there was a lack of people at Barkley's pro day, if I'm going to make a mock draft, if I'm going to project what the draft is going to look like in a few weeks, here is my theory. I think it could be Darnold to the Browns, number 1. It would be Bradley Chubb to the Giants at 2. Josh Rosen to the Jets at 3. Saquon Barkley to the Browns at 4. Quentin Nelson to the Broncos at 5. And for the Colts at 6, I think it might be Minkah Fitzpatrick. Right now, I think that's where the top 6 could go. Obviously, some things could change. There could be another trade. Maybe somebody trades up at 4 overall with the Browns to get a quarterback. I can see the Bucs trading out of the top 10 with maybe a team like the Bills, so the Bills could come up and get maybe a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson. But I think that Darnold going to the Browns, Chubb going to the Giants, Rosen to the Jets are major possibilities right now, which leaves Barkley dropping, Quentin Nelson dropping, and other quarterbacks who we all expect to go in the first round available for the Bills, for the Saints, for the Broncos, and for whoever else is trying to draft a quarterback. And I mention the Saints because they're going to be planning sooner or later for the world post Drew Brees. Topic number 2 this week on the Mutant Blitz podcast. So the much anticipated trailer for Deadpool 2 came out this week with some particular items, including the name drop of the Young Mutant group X-Force, Deadpool and Professor Xavier's wheelchair, and numerous moments with Deadpool going head-to-head with Cable. Deadpool going head-to-head with Cable is definitely a tip of the cap to the comics. The way Deadpool and Cable met, they were enemies in the comics. They later became frenemies, or friends, depending on which comic line you were reading at the time. And I think that's how the movie's going to go. I think you're going to have a situation where Cable, who is a time-traveling mutant with immense amount of power, immense amount of ability, basically he's going to time travel, and he's going to end up fighting Deadpool here and there, and then they're probably going to team up, and they're going to go against who the real big villain is, big bad guy, because you're not going to have Cable be the bad guy for the whole movie, because it would kind of also ruin the hilarity of the movie. One of the things that makes Deadpool 1 so funny was that you didn't really spend a lot of time worrying about the villain. You were focused so much on what Deadpool was doing, it was too funny. the Mutant Team X-Force. First of all, again, another nod to the comics, but also to it allows Fox to do what they always wanted to do, which is if 21st Century Fox Studios is going to have to close the book on their version of the X-Men universe and mutants, why not go out with a bang? You see the way Deadpool 1 and 2 are being filmed. Obviously, the way a lot of fans, and whether you're a comic book fan or just a casual movie fan would like, but also you're seeing what they're doing with the new, younger X-Men. It's basically allowing Fox to basically put everything on the table, do everything they ever wanted, and just go out with a bang. Because if and when Disney fully acquires these movie properties back, you're going to have almost every character recast. You're going to have almost every character redone. You're going to have a rewrite so that you can blend all of these characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you know what? Why not go out with a bang? Why not go totally crazy? Oh, and there's a reason why Deadpool was in Professor Xavier's wheelchair. Because they're going to try to make the further connection between the X-Men and Deadpool. Whether it's to say that Deadpool at one point was a part of the X-Men or would have been part of the X-Men, or if they want to say that, Professor X was on vacation in the last movie and that's why you didn't see him in the first movie. Or they're going to have some sort of connection between X-Men and Deadpool. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. At the end of the day, Deadpool 2 is about having fun. It's not an overly serious movie. It's meant to entertain you and be a little bit slapstick and be as ridiculous and extreme and weird as possible. And I'm fine with that. I don't want to overthink the situation. I don't think we should overthink it. Just take it as is. This is not a movie for the comic book fan to hyper criticize. Why is Terry Crews playing this character, or is Peter Wisdom going to be in this movie? There's all kinds of names that you're thinking are in this movie, and if they are, it's great. If not, I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. It's going to be a great, hilarious movie, and I think it'll be probably better than the first movie. But I think having Cable in there and having Josh Brolin play him is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to expose another side of the comic book universe that we haven't seen yet. Getting Cable in a movie is a big deal. And for those people who don't know who Cable is the son of Scott Summers and Jean Grey in a very obscure, bizarre way. I don't want to get into the full story, but basically, to make a long story short, if it wasn't for time travel and for the villain Apocalypse, which you saw in the one X-Men movie a couple of years ago, Cable would never have been infected with the organic virus, and he basically uses a lot of his powers to keep the technovirus from taking over his entire body and killing him. That's why he looks a little bit like a Terminator. The Cable character was created in the comics before movies like Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Terminator 3 and all those things. So even though he's going to be portrayed in the movie looking a little bit like half Terminator, half mutant, in reality, he wasn't specifically made to look like that in the comics. It just happened to be a convenient plot design as the comics are drawn out for time. Be like, oh yeah, we can make him look like that. Yeah, why not make his eye red? The other thing you should know with Cable is that if you're going to have Cable in a movie and you're going to have him fight Deadpool, you should realize that Cable is probably the most formidable character when it comes to fighting in the entire Marvel Universe. If you were to make a list of the top 10 fighters in Marvel Comics, you would have guys like Black Panther and Captain America on that list. And yeah, Deadpool will be on the list too, along with Wolverine. But so would Cable. Because Cable has training that some of the other guys I just named never had. Experience in fighting, experience in dealing with warfare that very few characters in the Marvel Universe have had. And Cable is one of the top 10 fighters when it comes to hand-to-hand combat and to warfare and combat tactics in the entire Marvel Universe. So when Cable does give Deadpool don't overthink it. It's pretty accurate to the comics. But also know that a lot of times in movies, they depower a lot of these characters. So I don't think Cable's going to be as unstoppable as he was in the comics. Because there's actually a comic where Deadpool takes out the entire Avengers and takes out the entire X-Men just to protect somebody. I don't think we're going to get that Cable, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun with the character in the movie. Topic number 3 on this week's Mutant Blitz podcast has to do with the NBA MVP race. I know a lot of people assume and are already crowning James Harden the league MVP. And as the season hits the home stretch for the National Basketball Association, I'm here to tell you that James Harden should not be the runaway winner. And it's because two players who are not just having great seasons, but they're also better all-around basketball players than James Harden, and they're much more valuable to their teams than Harden has been to the Rockets. And I'm not having this conversation to diss James Harden or to say he doesn't deserve what's coming to him and all that kind of silliness. I want to have a conversation about the fact that that word valuable should mean something. When Steph Curry was the unanimous league MVP, it was an insult and embarrassment to basketball. Because did he have an outstanding season? Yes. Was he on the best team? Yes. But he wasn't the most valuable player to his team, because you take Steph Curry off that team, they're still making the playoffs. They're still making a playoff run. You can find another guard who is less capable than Steph to be another shooter on that team. What makes Steph Curry a great player is that he's a lethal shooter and that he's a game changer. James Harden's having a great season. And I know everybody likes to look at the points. Yes, he's leading the league in scoring. That's nice. But what he's also doing is he's also has 1.8 steals per game. Harden's also having one of his best seasons from the free throw line. Not just getting to the line, but converting at 86.7. He's having a great season. Absolutely, we all know that. And now in his 6th season with the Rockets, at 28 years old, he's really hitting his prime. You're really seeing some of the best basketball you're going to get from James Harden. But the two of the players I mentioned that should absolutely, positively be in the conversation for MVP and not far behind Harden. This silliness about Harden is the runaway winner is an absolute joke. The other two players are Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Because that letter V in MVP stands for valuable. What Davis and James have done this season should not be overlooked. First of all, Anthony Davis is playing now this entire second half of the season, even for the All-Star game, without Boogie Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins, injury, out for the season. Davis has really stepped up his game. Outside of the 28.5 points per game and leading the league with 2.4 blocks per game and the almost 1.5 steals a game, it's the 11.2 rebounds. It's the fact that Davis is having one of the best shooting seasons of his career at 53.8%. It's the fact that he's shooting 34.5% from three. He is single-handedly carrying this Pelicans team into the postseason. And not as an 8 seed. They're in the middle of the pack. He is having an absolutely amazing season. And he has done everything in his power to make this team better. And also, don't overlook the fact that Davis, what he's doing is he's doing it with a team that is a lesser team than James Harden is playing with. Harden still has Chris Paul out there. He still has Clint Capella. He's got Joe Green coming off the bench and Eric Gordon, the former 6th man of the year. Anthony Davis, he's doing it with Drew Holiday, Etuan Moore. I mean, come on, man. He's second in the league in player efficiency rating right now, is Anthony Davis. I mentioned that he leads the league in blocks, but also he's one of the top players when it comes to numerous categories in the league this year. He plays both ends of the floor, unlike James Harden. Harden does take many defensive possessions off. Davis is also second in the league in defensive win shares. Anthony Davis is 4th in the league in overall win shares. Davis, without him, the Pelicans are headed for the lottery. Plain and simple. And LeBron James, we always overlook him. We forget that he's the best player on the planet. That for the 2nd straight year, he's leading the league in minutes per game. That LeBron is having one of the best shooting seasons of his career, like Davis is. LeBron is shooting 36.9% from three. There's only been a few times LeBron James has shot 36% or better for a season from three. LeBron, with all the triple doubles, with all the assists, with all the spectacular defensive plays, LeBron is averaging also 9.1 assists per game this season. That's the highest average per game of assists that he has had in his career. And how many games have we seen it? His teammates will give him absolutely nothing. There was a game earlier this year where his teammates went 0 for 10 in the fourth quarter. LeBron right now is second in the league in total assists. This season, he is top 10 in the league in steals. Also this season, he has done a lot of scoring. He is second in the league in total points scored. LeBron James is a phenomenal player. Without him, the Cavs, like the Pelicans without Anthony Davis, would be headed to lottery. James Harden may be having the most outstanding season, and he may be getting the most hype. But if you think about who is more valuable to their team, stop looking at points per game. James Harden is averaging less assists per game than LeBron James. Anthony Davis has better defensive statistics, not just in steals and blocks, but in defensive efficiency rating than James Harden. Anthony Davis got better shooting percentage. Oh, that's right. So does LeBron overall. LeBron's shooting 54%. James Harden, he's doing all this while averaging 20.4 field goal attempts per game. Anthony Davis, less. LeBron James, less. James Harden's a volume scorer. James Harden's having a great season, and he's probably going to win the MVP. But the fact that we're so quick to dismiss the amazing season that LeBron and Anthony Davis are having, I think is embarrassing. And if James Harden, for whatever reason, wins the award unanimously, I will call out every NBA MVP voter and tell them that they should not have a vote anymore. Because that V in MVP stands for valuable. James Harden is not the most valuable player in the league this year. He may be the most outstanding. LeBron James and Anthony Davis absolutely, positively have to be in the conversation for most valuable player. Because that V in MVP is supposed to mean something. Topic number 4 this week on the Mutant Blitz podcast. There's a new show on Sci-Fi called Krypton. It debuted this week. It comes with a new level of storytelling. This is something that we have been waiting for as comic book fans. We've been waiting for the moment where the world embraces what comic books are. It's basically another type of science fiction. And it's only appropriate that the Sci-Fi Channel gets to have this show. So audiences are introduced to the grandfather of Superman, Seg-El, who will have to save Krypton in the TV show from Brainiac and many other issues on the planet, and protect the future where his grandson, Kal-El, comes to Earth and becomes that world's most famous superhero. And you're already seeing a lot of connections between Superman movies, Superman comics, and the TV show, which is a lot of fun, but they do it in a way that's not overwhelming. But the level of storytelling is going to be something that we've been waiting for on this type of level. You know, on the CW, you see a lot of character portrayal, but it's in the CW style. You know, it's the relationships, it's the boyfriend, it's the girlfriend, it's the dating, it's the drama. And then you see on shows like Netflix, you know, the heroes, more of a grounded, real-world telling without all the hyper drama, the sci-fi, but in a way that Netflix shows basically rival what you would see on an HBO or a Showtime with their shows. What you're getting now from Krypton is the purity of what comics are about. The Sci-Fi Channel is a network that's supposed to be about science fiction programming. You know, you've seen shows on there forever like Stargate and other things like that. when you break it down, comic books are a form of science fiction. You know, this whole idea of aliens coming to Earth and other planets and other universes. And I think Krypton has the chance to do something that other shows have not done, which is give audiences that side of comics that comic book fans love, the whole, universe expansion. You're going to give that to audiences who are not hardcore comic book fans, but in a way that they can say, this feels more like science fiction than it is a comic book. All comic books are is a different way of telling science fiction stories. That's really all it is. And I think Krypton has the chance to finally bridge that gap for people and bring in a new audience to understand how expansive the comic book universes are. It's not just about Superman and Batman. There's a lot more to it and a lot more characters involved beyond those handful of characters. I understand Gotham has been trying to do that on Fox, but where Gotham falls short and Krypton can be better is that Gotham is trying to tell a fictional story with sci-fi elements in a character's world who himself is not a science fiction character. Batman has no superpowers. Batman wasn't a mutant. Or Batman didn't get infused with any special abilities. He's just a guy who happens to be rich, who went through years of training to become the greatest detective and one of the greatest fighters and one of the greatest superheroes of all time. Theoretically, anybody could be Batman. Not anybody could be Superman. Where Gotham really tries to be nitty and gritty and different, they come up short because you really have to reach. You really have to stretch it out. You really have to make it almost more than it is in order to present that story. Whereas Krypton, everything's already there. It's a different world. There's all these different other stories and issues to go along with it. And you already got a villain you have to deal with that is going to be a great reveal for how capable he is. And I think that Krypton on the Sci-Fi Channel has a chance to be better than what we've seen from Gotham on Fox. Topic number 5 this week. So I've been following the Chris Long saga this week. So those who didn't hear, so it started with Field Yates reporting the Eagles and Chris Long had negotiated a new deal where they were going to give Chris Long a higher base salary and undo a lot of the bonuses that came along with his contract. Basically, the way his original contract was written, he was going to be getting a bonus for every week he was on the Eagles roster in 2018. And he would also get a fat bonus at the start of the league year. Well, a few hours after Field Yates reported this, the NFL Network's Mike Silver, along with Mike Garofalo of NFL Network and Fox Sports, reported a counter report that Chris Long had not signed any said deal and that there was no official NFL transaction, as they were calling it. And they went on to say that Chris Long has not decided if he's officially coming back this year or not. Now, a day after all these reports came out, Chris Long was at a charity event. He was asked about it, and he said that he's still making a decision if he wants to play football in 2018, and that he's definitely leaning toward playing for the Eagles, and that it's not about the money. So often we forget that athletes are people too. They're not just parts of a team that play a game that we love to watch. Chris Long has a lot of interest outside of football. He doesn't have to play football. You look at the fact that he gave away his entire salary last year to charity. So the guy's already telling you money is not the key for him. Money is not the goal for Chris Long. He gave away his entire salary from the regular season to charity. Also, look at who his father is. His father is Howie Long. Howie Long, in many ways, despite the fact that he was a legendary player for the Raiders organization, Howie Long has had a more famous career post-football in the media. More people know who Howie Long is today than knew who he was during his career. And he's done so without the major side effects that a lot of athletes go through after their careers are done. Howie Long has not suffered the many health issues that a lot of players have suffered post-football career. And I think Chris Long looks at his dad and says, I want to be that when my career is done. I want to have that clarity. I want to have that lack of health problems, that ability to do whatever I want with my post-football career. And I think that that's a part of him that says, do I really want to go through the training this offseason? Do I really love football that much? I'm willing to put my body through one more season. Yeah, Chris Long will have a different role for the Eagles in 2018 than 2017. And part of that's because of Michael Bennett. Part of that's because of Vinny Curry being cut. Part of that's because it's the second year for Derek Barnett. But Chris Long, for him, football is not always about the role and the money and all those things. He had a lesser role with the Patriots in 2016 they did with the Eagles in 2017. Chris Long's last couple of years with the Rams, they weren't on the level that you would expect a guy who was drafted as high as he was to have. Chris Long has had a very profitable and amazing career and life. He doesn't need football. He doesn't need the Eagles. He doesn't need the money. Don't mistake him not being 110% committed to the 2018 season. Don't confuse that with his passion and ability to play the game. And also, I don't like the fact that Mike Silver and Mike Garafolo are trying to turn this into a he said, she said debate. Garafolo and Silver can say all they want. Well, it's not an official NFL transaction. But the deal is registered with the NFLPA. There is a change in the NFLPA's information about the Eagles' salaries and their salary cap. Well, they didn't get that from nowhere. And this can't be a one-sided restructuring. Chris Long had to sign something in order for the NFLPA to make those changes to their own estimates for Philadelphia. And that tells me this is what the conversation went. Gathering everything I know about Chris Long from different reporters who cover from the team and everything I've been told about Howie Roseman and the Eagles and how they work, here's how I think what really happened. I think the Eagles called Chris Long and told him their intentions. Chris Long told them, listen, I haven't made a decision about 2018 yet. I'm taking time with my family. I'm enjoying my off season. I'm just taking it easy right now. And I think the Eagles said, well, listen, how about you sign this contract? Either way, it's going to give us certain flexibilities and needs that we have financially with the salary cap. If you decide to retire, that's fine. We're not going to be upset. But can you at least do us this favor? And if you do come back, the contract will be already in place and already processed for you. And I think Chris Long and the Eagles have some sort of handshake agreement. And I think that's where the NFLPA got their information, that Long's agent told the NFLPA, this is what we agreed to, and if Chris plays in 2018, this is what the contract and the information the salary cap are going to look like for the Eagles. So it's not that Field Yates was wrong. It's not that Mike Silver and Mike Garafolo were wrong. It's that these are two sides of the same coin. Yes, it's not an official NFL league transaction, but the information obviously got to the NFLPA somehow. There obviously is a agreement in place between the Eagles and Chris Long about what his future would look like in Philadelphia. Now, whether Chris Long plays football or not in 2018 is all on him. But I don't think it has anything to do with the money or his role. I think a lot of it has to do with when he looks his father in the eyes and he looks at his kids. I think Chris Long thinks long and hard. Does he want to put in the work to go through another football season? The grind and the hard work and the punishment that the body takes to play at the level that Chris Long wants to play at. Chris Long isn't showing up to collect a paycheck. Chris Long is out there because he loves football. He has to make a decision for himself if his love for football is greater than his desire to do what he wants to do off the field with his family and his charities. And that's only a decision that he can make. No one can make it for him. And whatever his decision is, I know I'm going to be good with it. Because if nothing else, Chris Long has been the model citizen, the model example in the NFL for how a player should work, how they should treat their teammates, and how they should be socially involved off the field, and how you're able to balance all of those factors. The final topic on this week's Mutant Blitz podcast, I want to talk about the Avengers Infinity War trailer. So the second trailer is hit, and if you watch both trailers in order, like I have at least about 4 times now, it tells us a lot about not just what this movie is going to be about, but where the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going moving forward. So let's first break down what we see in the trailers. First of all, in the new trailer, Gamora is explaining to Iron Man what a lot of comic book readers understand, which is Thanos is obsessed with the destruction of the universe. As a result, you look at what Marvel is going to do with this movie. Aside from the massive collection of people who are going to be all in this movie, from the Guardians of the Galaxy to the return of Steve Rogers and the new version of Bucky Barnes and Black Panther and Bruce Banner and Thor and all these different characters, it's also the telling of why all the other movies happened. And you see that in the movie about how Thanos gets one of the Infinity Stones from Loki, the same Infinity Stone that he entrusted Loki with in the first movie, what they call the Tesseract, which is also known as the Space Stone. You also see that Thanos already has 2 Infinity Stones in the trailer itself. So you know that Thanos is already collecting stones. And we know that Vision has 1 stone, the Mind Stone, and that the Time Stone is in the possession in the Eye of Agamotto with Doctor Strange. So even then, though, Thanos will only have 4 of the 6 stones. The more I watch these trailers, the more I come away with 3 specific theories. 1, I don't think the Soul Stone is going to make an appearance in this movie, and if it does, it's going to be referenced. I don't think Thanos is actually going to get it. 2, it looks like Iron Man's plan is to use Doctor Strange and Vision as bait, so when Thanos comes to them, they can ambush on multiple fronts. And as you see from the trailer, it looks like they're not very successful, because you see the one scene where Doctor Strange is being tortured, and you see the other scene where Vision is having the Mind Stone harvested from him. So I think the combination of those 2 things tells me that somehow we're going to end the Infinity War movie with Thanos walking away with at least one of those stones at the end of the film. But I think we're also going to get a conclusion of the story arc of multiple people. A lot of people are confused about how, at the end of the new trailer, Captain America has the physical wherewithal to resist Thanos. And there's 2 theories that people have with that. One theory is that Captain America is in possession of an Infinity Stone, which is possible. I'm not saying it's without possibility. But you see the look on Thanos' face when he sees Steve Rogers resisting. And it goes from, I'm going to beat this guy up, to, I'm a little concerned. And I think that tells you a lot about what the plan is with Steve Rogers. I have been saying for a few years now that I thought that because the contracts of guys like Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth, that their contracts were coming up, that I thought that Thor and Captain America were going to die in at least this Avengers movie or the next Avengers movie. And it will pave the way for a new Avengers, an Avengers that includes Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and Black Panther. And maybe the Hulk does stay around. Maybe Black Widow stays around. But also you're seeing that Ant-Man and the Wasp are coming out with their own movie. You're seeing that they're coming out with the Captain Marvel movie, which is going to feature the character of Carol Danvers, played by Brie Larson. For those who don't know, Captain Marvel is basically Marvel Comics version of Supergirl, even though the character of Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, was created before what we know as Supergirl today was created in the comics. But basically, if Superman didn't have laser eyes, but he had super blasters in his hands, and he was a female with a military background, that's who Miss Marvel is. Also known as Captain Marvel. And I like the fact they cast Brie Larson because I think she makes a lot of sense for being a young lady imbued with a crazy amount of power who's having to learn how to use it and still wanting to save the day. And also having a Captain Marvel movie allows you to utilize all of the Kree-suggested concepts that you've had now for a long time in the Marvel TV shows. I mean, we've seen so much about the Kree in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and in, different movies reference that you might as well have a superhero who has a direct connection to the Kree, who's an Inhuman in Captain Marvel. And I think that what we're going to see is that when we make the transition from Phase 3 to Phase 4, this is where the launching point is. Your new Avengers team is going to be led by the likes of Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then whoever else is left after this Infinity War. There's a lot of speculation of who's going to die. I still contend that these two movies are going to be the last times that you see Steve Rogers and Thor and Iron Man in their current versions. I don't know who else is going to survive or not, but I do know that the reason why Captain America is going to be able to give Thanos a run for his money has to do with the fact that we forget, whether it's as comic book readers or as moviegoers, that Steve Rogers was created to be the super soldier, the ultimate, American military man. Everything about his physiology, everything about his mind, everything about his will makes him the peak and pinnacle of the idea of truth, justice, in the American way. We use that phrase for Superman a lot because Superman said it a bunch of times in movies and in comics. But in reality, Captain America was supposed to stand for truth, justice, in the American way. When he ditched the shield and his old suit, what he basically was saying is that I'm my own man, and I gotta stand on my own 2 feet. And I'm not here to just save America anymore. I'm here to save the world. And going head to head with Thanos, I think in many ways for Captain America, this is what it's all been building up to. This is his last stand, is Infinity War. And whether he dies in the movie or not, what you see when Thanos goes to hit him and he grabs Thanos' hand with the Infinity Stones on it, the gauntlet, and Thanos has a look on his face of concern, and Rogers has what it looks like to him screaming and not yielding, is a direct harken back to the comics. This is the moment that comic book fans have been wanting. The individual who embodies everything good and moral and just in the Marvel Universe going against the embodiment of evil and destruction. And in the comics, when Thanos gets all the Infinity Stones and he's wiped out every single Marvel superhero, the only man standing left to fight him and still keeps fighting him in the comics is Captain America. I think the reason why they showed that part of the trailer is because that's going to be a major part of not just this Avengers Infinity War movie, but it's going to be a major plot point for the 4th Avengers film. The Infinity War is what every movie from Iron Man 1 until now has been building toward. And while Thanos is going to leave a wave of destruction across the planet, and you're probably going to see either at the end of Infinity War or at the end of Avengers 4, possibly multiple heroes are dead and gone. It's not going to be for naught. It's not going to be in vain. It's going to be because Thanos is just that powerful. Thanos is actually a mutant on his own planet, from the planet of Titan. That's why he's so big and so strangely proportioned. He's upset. He's basically a nihilist, is Thanos. And you have a nihilist coming to a planet that is known for a bunch of people who basically fight for hope. Infinity War and Avengers is going to be more than just a great superhero. It's going to be more than a great action story. It's going to be something that is going to break all the Black Panther records. I know Black Panther is just destroying the box office right now. But what Infinity War is going to do is it's going to introduce you to a style of storytelling that has been almost exclusive to comic books and is finally coming to the big screen, which is the ability to build anticipation for the unknown. In the comic books, the way Thanos was defeated was the most unexpected way possible. And I anticipate we're going to see the same thing in the movie, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see all of these heroes go head to head with the most evil of evil they possibly could ever face. Everyone keeps saying how amazing Josh Brolin has done with the role of Thanos. If he is at least as good as James Spader at playing Ultron, Thanos may go down as a top 5 villain all time in comic book movie history. Heath Ledger and the Joker still may be number one, and in my mind, there's very few people who can get close in that conversation. Thanos has that chance, and that alone may be a reason for you to want to go see that movie. Thanks for checking in with this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. No one-on-one conversation this week. I've been dealing with a lot of different things professionally and personally this week. I've been extremely busy, putting in a lot of crazy hours at work this week. And on a personal front, there have been some family things I've been dealing with. So no one-on-one conversation this week. We'll get back to the one-on-one conversations next week. I hope you appreciate the elongated talking conversation on the topics. If you have any thoughts and opinions, please drop a comment and a like down below. Also hit that subscribe button so you can get the podcast each and every week. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week on the Mutant Blitz podcast. I'm Josh Hennig. Catch you next time.